Hey guys, Dr. Brittany here. Thank you all for joining me for another session of Supervision Sundays. If you are not already, go ahead and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's at Lead Clinically. That's LEADCLINICALLY. That way you can get the latest updates on what we're doing, see our content, share anything that you like, give me feedback, let us know how we're doing. Now, today, we're gonna talk about clinical leadership, why that's important, right? I hear a lot of people say, hey, Dr. B, I wanna become a supervisor. I wanna, be a clinical director. I want to be in leadership when it comes to social work or at my agency. How do I do that? And so I'm gonna share my background with you all and 4 tips that I have in order to push you towards that. So if you're interested in that, please stay tuned. But first, I'm gonna do what everyone likes to do when they are in one of those chairs that move and spin, right? So it's fun, you gotta get it out. All right, so hopefully I don't spin through the rest of the vlog, but if I do, just work with me. Don't act like you don't find joy in spinning in chairs. All right, stay tuned. All right, so let's get into it. So again, I get a lot of questions about how to become a leader in the field of social work or in a behavioral health agency. And so my background, I have been an assistant director, a clinical director, a supervisor. I've pretty much had all the roles that I could have in leadership with the exception of like CEO, right? And so I absolutely have loved those roles. They've been amazing. And it's been something that like I naturally fell into, right? And so I started off being a community coordinator. That's not correct. I was a courthouse coordinator. That was the exact title. And so that was for an injunction assistance program. And then I moved to Gainesville where I became a dependency drug court counselor. And I moved up in that agency. So I went from there to supervisor for our outpatient substance abuse and mental health program. Loved it. We worked in the rural areas. And so I grew up country. And so it was lovely for me. I'm talking getting stuck behind a watermelon truck on the way to work. So if that's never happened to you, you're not missing anything because it can be a drag, but it was something that I loved. And then I moved to the Tampa Bay area where I became an assistant director and then a director for a community mental health agency. So I have loads of experience in this. And so what I'm gonna say is the first tip that I have for you is you have to really ask yourself, why do you wanna be in leadership? And this is a very important question. I do believe that there are natural leaders in the world, right? There are people who others are naturally drawn to, people who are really great at it, right? But there is a true difference between a supervisor and a leader, right? And so a supervisor is more task oriented. Did you get this done? What are your time frames? Making sure you do that. And those are great skills to have as a leader. But a leader builds upon the ability to keep people on task by motivating people, looking and really getting to know their staff, right? Like, do you have kids? How do you learn? Do I need to approach you differently than I approach the rest of the staff, right? And so that's super important as a leader because you don't want to just focus on outcomes, but you want to focus on encouraging your staff and motivating them to meet those outcomes. Another thing about a leader is that you have to be willing to get down and dig with your staff. And so sometimes that means that for behavioral health, you may have to see some clients, right? You may have to go out to the home and model for your staff how to do something, or you may have to say, hey, can you show me what you're doing so I can learn from you? And so that's super important. So you want to make sure that leadership is truly for you when you're saying, hey, I want to be in leadership, because again, your style of leading may not be the best for where you're at. So I don't want you guys to feel like, hey, I tried it, it didn't work for me. Sometimes it's really about the agency you're working for and whether you're a good fit for that agency as a leader and whether you're a good fit for that agency and the staff that you'll be leading, right? And so it does take a lot to have to get to know your staff, and it's just like clinical work, it's just like therapy. You're having to remember what's going on with them, you're having to be mindful of that, but you're also having to remember those rules and policies and procedures, and that can be a lot for people. And so I really, really want you guys to remember that the first things things first. Before you jump into a leadership role and apply, you really need to ask yourself why it is you want to be a leader. And if your answers are because I'm going to get more money, or because, people will respect me, or, I won't have to work as much, I'm going to tell you guys, that is all a myth. Sometimes you're not getting a lot of money to be a leader. And sometimes what they're reimbursing you for your work and your time doesn't really account for all that you do. Oftentimes people are going to dislike you as a leader. They're not always going to agree. They're going to question what you say, and that's okay. It's okay for people to question and ask you why you're making a decision. But if that's not something that you're used to or that you are comfortable with, leadership may not be for you. You may be a great clinician, but leadership may not be for you. I reflect on one time I called a guy because I was hiring for the supervisor position under me. And I called him, and he had applied for the supervisor position. And some of the questions that he asked me was, how many staff, what is it that we do? He asked great questions, and I answered those for him. And at the end of the phone call, he said, I've been in leadership before, and what I'm hearing from you, I don't think that this is the job for me. And I respected that. He probably, I can't remember this guy's name, but probably one of the smartest men I've ever had the pleasure of talking to for 10 minutes, because what he knew was that he was self-aware and there were too many staff to have to manage, and it wasn't for him, and he respectfully declined. It wasn't the type of work, but he said, I don't know that I want to be responsible for more people, and that was okay. And so that's what I want you guys to think about. What is your reason for wanting to be in leadership? And make sure that you understand that it is not an easy job. So the second thing that I'm going to tell you, if you're interested in a leadership role, you want to make sure that you're getting out into the community and you're actually volunteering. Now, a lot of people have some difference of opinions about that, and I'll say that I can completely understand, but let me tell you the benefit, right? When you know the community that you're serving, it makes you a better leader, especially when we're talking behavioral health, right? And so one of the things that I think has always helped me in my interviews has been my ability to say that I go out into the community, I know what people are saying or what they're doing, or I'm willing to get out there. So let's just say I have relocated. I really try to make sure that I establish some roots in the community that I'm living in. And so that's one part of this, right? The other part, when I say, that you want to make sure that you're volunteering, is that you take leadership roles in organizations that you volunteer in. So many of you all know that I am a member of the National Association of Social Workers. Now, that didn't just start when I moved to the Tampa Bay area. I was a member in Tallahassee, and I was just a member then, right? But as I moved, when I went to Gainesville, I decided, I'm going to be the secretary. And then when I came to the Tampa Bay area, I've held roles as the legislative chair, and I'm also currently the co-chair of the Tampa Bay unit. And so what I like about that is it allows me to meet social workers in different fields, also allows me to learn about the rules that govern our profession. And so with that, it also allows me to consider that as a resume builder, which it absolutely is, to show that, hey, I'm not only wanting to be a leader in this organization, but I'm also a leader in my community. And so some of the other organizations, I volunteered for Free Therapy Night with the University of Florida. I also am involved in the League of Women Voters, the Wealth for Life, and also the Urban League here in Pinellas County. And so again, I'm not just a member paying fees. One of the things that I do, I always try to take a leadership role and get involved. Again, that allows me to know more resources. That also allows me to build connections, right? And so what I mean by that, when you're volunteering and you're getting to know your community, you meet someone that works for another agency. And so when you call and you need help for your client, or you're a leader in an organization and someone's saying, I really wish we knew someone over there, you can say, hey, I know someone, I've built a relationship. And that goes a long way for the work that you're doing. The third thing that I want to say is that if you're wanting to go into clinical leadership, you're gonna have to be willing to sacrifice. And so a lot of people are focused on this 40-hour work week, right? And that's great. Yes, you should absolutely have a 40-hour work week. But what I can tell you is the honest truth is that as a leader in general, doesn't matter what type of leadership role you're in, you're never really off the clock. Sometimes your staff may call you on your work phone, and they may call you after hours at 7 o'clock and say, I'm thinking about resigning tomorrow. And so at that point, you have a decision to make, right? You can call that person back, right then, or you can say, I don't work after 5. But a lot of times when your staff reach out to you, especially if it's after hours, it goes a long way in making them feel supported when you're willing to hear them out or talk to them or understand what's going on with them. And so that's just one example, but I can honestly tell you that when you're in leadership, any leadership role, you are never off the clock. And so that's a huge sacrifice. You should absolutely have boundaries. You don't want it to be the type of leadership role that is gonna, interfere with your personal life so much that you can't have a personal life, but you should absolutely go into the position with the knowledge that, hey, I may be on call when someone calls off. I may have to be on call all the time, which is really true for clinical leadership, and I may have to support my staff. And so that's super important. Now, the last thing that I'm gonna say is mentorship. And this is something that I actually learned from my dad. My dad told me a long time ago, and what's interesting is that when my dad used to tell me stuff as a kid, I used to be like, leave me alone. So he told me that I needed to get grades as if I was gonna get my doctorate. And I was like, I am not doing that. I am not a geek. I'm not getting my doctorate. And here I am, just leading in the profession, went back to school and got a doctorate, just wise as he wants to be, right? But one of the things that he said to me is that you have to think about the position you want to be in. And whatever that position is, you look at who's already there. Look at their resume and look at what they're doing. And he was right. 9 out of 10 times when you look at the people who are in the position you want to be in and you look at their resumes, you see that they are members of multiple organizations, they're in leadership roles, they're respected in their community, they are not just going to work and going home. They may have struggled a little bit, so sometimes they got to step down in a position to go back up. And so paying attention to that, but finding a mentor, someone who knows the ropes and knows the goals that you have, right? Not everybody's going to be appropriate to be your mentor. So take what you can from people. And that doesn't mean that you're saying, hey, I'm taking advantage of them or, I'm an opportunist. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you are open to learning and you're open to receiving feedback about how you can enhance the skills that you already have. And sometimes those skills are great for leadership, but you need some more. You're lacking in areas. And so being able to take that feedback, right? Being able to know that sometimes you suck. So sometimes Dr. B sucks and she needs that feedback, right? Or sometimes I'm missing the mark and that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're not appropriate for leadership, but you really have to have a mentor, someone that you can share what you're going through with, someone that you can consult with, and again, someone who's doing the work already. And so that doesn't have to mean that they're super old or super young, but you're really looking at what is that person doing? Are they walking the walk? Are they talking the talk? And how can they help me enhance my skills? So that's my feedback. If you're interested in clinical leadership, I'm gonna tell you, go for it, but make sure, again, that you are asking yourself why you wanna do it and challenging your reasons why, making sure that you're volunteering in the community, making sure that you're willing to sacrifice, and also making sure that you attach yourself to a mentor. Those are my thoughts. I'm interested in what you guys think and what you're trying to do for yourself. Please comment in the comment section, and again, like this video and share it on Facebook if you're not already. Again, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It is @LeadClinically. And thank you all.